Welcome back to another YouTube video. Today we're going to cover the Rams versus Seahawks, how those first two matchups played out. The Rams took the one in week 11, the Seahawks took the one in week 16. So we're going to go through the film from both those games, see how that's going to impact what we might see on this third matchup in the NFC Championship game. So before the video, make sure you like and subscribe, but I hope you enjoy. We're going to start out with the Seahawks offense against the Rams defense because Sam Darnold is a huge key tipping point in this game because he's thrown multiple interceptions in both games against the Rams this year. He's struggled against them throughout his career, so he's going to be the key part of this Seahawks offense. So let's look at what he's done bad and what the Rams have done well throughout these first two matchups, starting in week 11 here. This is the first drive, and as Sam Darnold drops back on his play action, he literally stares down Cooper Kupp the entire rep. I mean, he is staring at him. So the Rams playing cover one, the robbers obviously going to follow the eyes of Darnold, work underneath that target, and then pick it off when it's thrown. So that was a terrible rep from Darnold. It ends up going back to like the 1 yard line for the Rams. So that's a brutal start for the Seahawks. Rams get easy points. Now working to the second drive of the first half, you see that Darnold on this play, the Rams run a rotating coverage. So they have this single high shell. He's going to rotate down into the flat, and then the nickel rotates back and takes the deep middle third. So Sam Darnold, he's eyeing the seam from Cooper Kupp, which normally would attack cover three. So that would work. But you notice that since they have to rotate this nickel back to take the deep middle third, the deep outside third, he's got to cover the seam a little bit more just because there's so much room in the middle of the field. So Sam Darnold, he needs to understand that. He needs to be able to hit Rashid Shaheed on this like sideline fade that would have been open because this deep outside third is more worried about Kupp. So then he throws it. That's an incomplete pass. They get 3 points out of that drive. Now moving on to the third drive, you see another rotating coverage. This time they show that single high shell. He rotates over to take a deep half, and then this corner rotates back to take a deep half. And Sam Darnold just cannot escape his primary read. He stares down Cooper Kupp for a while, but not long enough. Like you'd think he would be able to find the fact that Cooper Kupp ends up coming open, but he kind of panics. He doesn't like the coverage. Even though Cooper Kupp did come open here, he just throws it right to his check down. And something that I also have noticed from Sam Darnold throughout the film against the Rams is he's got a fast internal clock. Like he wants to get the ball out faster than sometimes he needs to. He wants to escape the pocket faster than sometimes he needs to. And this is one example. I didn't think he needed to throw this right now. I think he could have waited for Kupp, but it does end up just a couple of yards. So then they work downfield on that third drive, and you see what happens when Sam Darnold has his first read. This is where he's really good because they run a play action boot to the left. So as he's going to roll out to the left here, you see JSN, he's working on like this deep out where he like works back towards the sideline and Darnold's able to just zip it right into him. It's a confident throw, accurate throw because JSN is open. That's his first read, and he knew where he was going with it. So that's when you see him really excel, but then you get back to him trying to progress through that first read, and like he just stares down these three receivers for so long. The Rams are all over it. And then on top of it, you see the fast internal clock. Like right about here, Sam Darnold does not need to escape the pocket. You do have Kobe Turner kind of bearing down on him, but like you have the block and release from Charbonnet. You could just toss it right out there. Instead, he makes this into something more than it needs to be, scrambles around, and ultimately throws an incomplete pass. That led to a field goal. So that's another missed play there from Darnold. But then working into drive 4, you see just how confident and accurate he is with his first read because you see JSN working against that press man corner. He's going to run a fade here. Sam Darnold knows where he's going with it. He sets back, fires, and he throws a dot to JSN who brings it in one-handed. Beautiful play. But like, why can't you do that every time? So then continuing on that fourth drive, we see again, like there's no rotating coverage. You have these two hook zones. Sam Darnold immediately processes it and then zips it right into the tight end, working in between the two hook zones. Perfect completion right there. Like that's what you want to see out of Sam Darnold. But then once again, you see his first reads, his primary receivers get taken away on this play, and he doesn't know what to do. He's scanning, and finally he tries to evade the pocket when he had A.J. Barner. And if you remember, A.J. Barner ran that exact same route in week 16 to win the game. So they ultimately come back to this, but Sam Darnold missed him, made it into something more than it needed to be again, rolled out and threw it away. So another instance where they had to settle for 3 because of kind of miscues from Darnold. So now we see 3 interceptions in a row. This is not pretty from Darnold because on this play, he just can't do this. You have a free rusher and it's from a stunt, horrible blitz pickup from Anthony Bradford, but Darnold, you can't make this decision. You can't make a bad play worse. Just because you have somebody bearing down on you does not mean you throw a deep out to JSN working against outside shade leverage of a deep outside quarter. That's not going to work, and you see it here. He's under pressure, so the ball comes out a little bit weird. It's just an ill-advised, just very aggressive, almost like afraid throw, if you know what I'm saying, and that cornerback undercuts it, and he picks it off. So bad play from Darnold there. And then once again, you see him just eye down his primary receiver. Like here, he's trying to hit this seam going up the middle of the field. And I think he thinks it's going to split these 2 deep safeties. But I mean, he just stares at him the entire rep. And you just can't do that because obviously that deep half is going to see those eyes. He's going to undercut this ball and he's going to pick it off. That's huge mistakes. And those cannot be made in the conference championship game. That is not going to end well if those mistakes are made. And you see once again, the last time, you can't make a bad play worse. He drops back here. He ends up getting under some pressure. He makes something happen, but like you just can't jump and throw this ball to a guy who's fully covered and then have it get picked off when you could have gotten 3 points on that drive. That's a huge mistake. So I would expect that the Seahawks coaching staff is really going over some of that stuff with them, seeing, hey, you got to make some smarter decisions here. Like, just take the sack at times. You don't always need to make a superhero play. But then as this game went on, you see that the Rams, up 9 with like 6 minutes left, they started playing a lot softer. So Darnold was able to start hitting more underneath routes. Here he hits one to Kenneth Walker, and they pick up a big gain. He's just able to hit the flat. And then since all those DBs are so far off, since everybody's worried about the shot over the top, he's able to pick up yards on the ground. You see another one here to JSN. He just runs the quick out. They work against the soft coverage and pick up a first down here. And then last one in the red zone or just outside of it, Sam Darnold, he hits that quick out to JSN once again, and he picks up the first down just like last time. So as that game went on, you see a little bit more confidence from Darnold. It kind of helped his stats a little bit, but definitely not like a great game from Darnold. It just happened that in the fourth quarter, the Rams started playing a little softer. So then they punch it in, but that's kind of all we see from the Seahawks offense in week 11. They did not perform well. And even though they scored 19 points, they had like 4 field goals and then that touchdown. So it didn't work out great for him, but let's move on to week 16. Starting in week 16, the Seahawks started off hot. I mean, they hit this screen pass real early on. This was like one of the first few plays. So I think it might have been just like a really good play call that they saw in film, because based off of how the entire secondary just kind of rolls over with this fake play action boot, it looks like that Clint Kubiak must have seen something. So then Sam Darnold just hits the screen pass and it literally goes the whole way. So this goes for like basically down into like the 5-yard line. So then after this play, they're able to just punch it right in for a touchdown, and this was the first drive. I mean, they started off hot. But then after this drive, you kind of see it go back to how it looked in week 11, because immediately you notice that the Seahawks try and kind of build off of the momentum they picked up in the week 11 first quarter with the flats. And the Rams were just denying it. They were not allowing the flats to open up. Here, they try and hit this quick little hitch off of soft coverage to JSN, and Emmanuel Forbes just crashes on it as soon as that ball is thrown, and he makes an incomplete pass. So second drive is over. And then on this play, they try and hit another one out to the flat to JSN, and you see the linebacker. He just drops right to it. They are all over it, and they are not allowing it on the flat, very similar to what we saw late in week 11. They are not allowing it this time. So Sam Darnold, he takes it, I think, for only a gain of 1. And then this one ends the third drive. It ends up being a sack because Sam Darnold, he just can't find his first read. This is kind of what I noticed. He looks over towards his first read and just does not see anything. He panics a little bit. That internal clock is back ticking real fast, and he ends up taking off. Landman makes a great play here, closing and then sacking Darnold. So that's how how that third drive ended. And then you just see more of it as this game progresses. As they go through this, Sam Darnold just does not look confident. It was clear that the Rams noticed how inconsistent or just vulnerable the Seahawks offense was to taking away that first read, because they were smothering JSN the whole game, and they just were not allowing for Sam Darnold to find somebody quick to throw it to. He wants to fit it to to JSN here in the flat. He's over it. The hook zone's all over it. So Sam Darnold, he just immediately gets sacked. So that's kind of what I'm seeing from the Rams. They really want to take away his first read because he's so bad out of structure. So then they only scored 7 points in the first half. That was the entire first half. So now we move on to the second half, and they open it just with a massive run. So Sam Darnold, he's not doing much, and he's getting carried to a pretty nice 13, 14 points right here because of a huge screen pass to Kenneth Walker and then a huge run from Kenneth Walker. So then on the second drive of that second half, you see Sam Darnold, he kind of gets going, but like, they really need to get creative. They put JSN in the backfield here just so Sam Darnold's primary read can get open, and they put him running an angle or a Texas, and he gets open. So Sam Darnold, like you saw in week 11, he's confident in structure. He's confident when he knows where he's going. So he's able to fit it into JSN. They pick up the first down. But then, what do you know? It's an interception. So on this play, you can probably guess by now that Sam Darnold, he's not going to like his first read. But in this case, he actually does like his first read. He sees his first read kind of come open, and they totally baited him. I don't know if the Rams saw something on film with this double slants combination, but they ran a Tampa 2, and this hook zone was just all over it. This isn't like too much on Sam Darnold. This is a really good play from the defense. He completely baited that throw, and it gets taken back pretty far. So not a huge mistake from Darnold. I could totally see something like that happening in the conference championship game, but that's mainly just a really good play from the Rams blowing up that first read and just completely baiting him. So then we come back to seeing what he does when he's good in structure. He fires it right to JSN, working in between zones. So that's a successful play for Darnold there. But then on the third drive of the second half, he completely just misses this throw where he's trying to hit it to Cooper Kupp running this comeback route. And I can't tell if he's a little rushed. Like, you know what I've been saying about his internal clock? It seems like he releases this just a little bit early because Cooper Kupp, he's working to the sticks. He wants the ball about right here, and he placed it not too far off right here, but it just seemed like he was a little early. So a misthrow there ends that drive. But then we go into the fourth quarter, and he immediately starts kind of cooking again. I mean, he throws one more interception, but he kind of starts to get into the groove. He hits a nice throw to JSN, who's running this like fake post out. Really good route from JSN, but exactly what I've been saying. He is great when he knows where he's going with the ball. It's when he's not knowing where he's going is when he really struggles. Such as this interception here. This one could have been a killer for the Seahawks. I don't know how they recovered, but he got baited again. He tries to hit this quick little route to JSN, and he throws it right to the defensive tackle, rotating back to the zone drop. He picks it off. So that's a brutal play for Darnold and brutal play for the Seahawks. So then they get the ball pretty far into territory. They hit a nice like end around to Rashid Shaheed. And then this play ends up being a huge touchdown from Darnold. But the thing that concerns me for Darnold is that this wasn't really him. Like, this was a phenomenal play call. I don't know if he audibled it. You can see he audibles here. So it could have been a great mental play from Darnold. But what I noticed, and I broke this down on the main page, is how this really attacked the cover three, because when this single high safety is rotating over there, and then this tight end off of this bootleg where all the action is just moving to that side, when he sells like he's breaking that direction, that single high safety is going to way over pursue, and then he breaks right back. And he's just wide open. So Darnold doesn't need to do that much. He honestly made it a little more difficult than it needed to be. But that ends up a touchdown. So that was a solid play from the Seahawks there. More so a play call. So same kind of thing. I'm not seeing Darnold make a ton of those really good plays. But then we get into OT, and for whatever reason, this is where Darnold just locks in, because he made one hell of a throw to Kupp here. He is under pressure. He is some guys just bearing down on him. He is fully surrounded, and the Rams after having sat on those flats a little harder throughout the game, we're going to sit on JSN working out of the backfield. So that opened up Kupp running this corner, going right in between the cloud flat and the deep half. Darnold delivers a ball just under pressure. That is impressive. So that was great stuff from Darnold there. And then they get the touchdown here. Another good play from Darnold. He's able to just sit back. He seemed more confident all of a sudden, and he was able to just stand in there and deliver a strike to JSN over the middle. So this seems like an entirely different quarterback than what we were seeing the first 3 quarters. And then on the 2-point to win it, this is what we saw in week 11, another bunch formation, just like what we saw then. And you have a tight end leak on the backside. He's going to work out, and Darnold throws it to him for the touchdown. So what I see from the Seahawks offense against the Rams defense is kind of just a combination of, I think the Rams will do a good job rotating coverages. I didn't see it as much in this week 16 game. And yet that was something they did really well in week 11 and what benefited them. So I think they might go back to a little bit of that. And then I also think they're going to mix in their man coverage. That's been successful for them throughout both games. But the key is that Darnold progresses, because if the Rams are able to take away Darnold's first progressions, then man, it could be a long day for the Seahawks, because we've seen the film and we know how poor he has looked, specifically against the Rams out of structure. So I think it'll be a number 1 goal for this Rams defense. Hey, take away the first read, and defensive line, you're getting your ass to Sam Darnold, because as soon as that happens, the game just looks ugly for the Seahawks. And that's exactly what we saw in week 11 and some of in week 16 before the Seahawks comeback, which also was helped by some special teams and defensive play. But I'm not expecting Darnold to perform too well. I think the Rams are going to have a solid game plan. They have plenty of tape on him, and they know what has worked the first 2 times. So I don't think they're going to go back to that softer coverage if they go up. I think they might just stay aggressive, but I'm definitely excited to see how Darnold performs. So now we get to the interesting matchup, the Rams offense against the Seahawks defense. Let's look at week 11 first. And what I noticed from week 11 is the Rams really were effective at marching methodically. Now, they didn't put up many points. They only had 21 points in the game, and their offense really did not perform all that well, but it looked a lot better than statistically it showed up, because they had a few missed opportunities and stuff. But you notice that, like this play, they attack the flat really well. They just take the yards that are given to them, because the Seahawks love to run match coverage. So like here, this corner's going to match up on Adams, and that allows for the flat to get open. So then you just hit the flat, and that's some positive yardage right there. They also did a great job with attacking the 2 high shell that the Seahawks live in, because like they always run this 2 high shell. I mean, I don't think I've seen a team do it more. So the Rams were just like, let me come out in 13 personnel, insert a tight end into the C gap, have another one as the fullback, insert him into the C gap or B gap, and then have this combo block work on the defensive tackle up to backer, have him climb up to backer, and then bang, you get a big play to Kyren Williams, because there's not an extra guy in the box. The angles work well, and it just works well and sets up well for a run game. You're going to see that throughout this Rams offensive film. So now we see the impact that Adams has. Davante Adams has a huge impact, and they didn't have him in week 16. So that's a huge reason they lost. But you see here, like they had a huge missed opportunity, and this is a 4th and 1. So they run that just bread and butter play for him, where they run that. It's not the exact same, but it's the same formation where you have the tight end come around, and then he's going to insert up, and they run play action out of it. But look at Adams. I mean, he is wide open here. If Stafford just sees that, that's a touchdown. Instead, he throws an incomplete pass to a guy who was literally open. So, like, that's a brutal play for the Rams. That was a total schematic win for McVay, and Stafford just failed to execute. So that was brutal from them there, and that's a huge loss. But luckily, their defense clutched up, and we saw that pick from Darnold that got them down at the 1-yard line. So they immediately punch it in with Kyren Williams. Great stuff there. So now they actually got points, but not really because of their offense, but because their defense was able to get them down there. So then we continue to see the rushing versus the 2 high shell. You see that 2 high shell, and they just pound the ground. I mean, this is a consistent theme. It's going to get kind of repetitive as I continue to go through it, but like great run from Kyren Williams there. You see once again kind of the flat against that match coverage. In this case, you just have the quick little like tight end screen, because Puka runs off that DB who matches up with him, and then you just hit the tight end, and he turns it into a huge gain because there was nobody else on that side since that DB matched up with Puka. So that was a great way to attack the match coverage, and then they just go back to pounding on that too high shell. And in this case, you see the Seahawks kind of started rotating that safety down on the snap because they were getting beat by the run, so they wanted to kind of stop that, although the Rams did just continue to pound the rock. They kept bringing down that safety, but the Rams just kept pounding the rock against that too high shell, just keep on moving it, and they just kept on going. Throughout this game, you see a lot of that. And this one I actually think was pretty intentional from the Rams because you see they rotate that same safety down. I think it's just the maybe the weak side safety. I'm not 100% sure of the rules relating to that defensive rotation, but it seems like the Rams just ran opposite of that. That guy took himself out of the play, and then the blocking angles worked well on the passing threat side, and they hit a big gain on the ground. So just like what I've been saying, they just attack the ground because the Seahawks live in that too high shell and just trust their front seven. But the Rams have great receivers that block, great tight ends that block, and their offensive line is good enough that they can manage those. So then you really see what Davante Adams does. They run that play, the real play this time, and what do you know, Davante Adams, he's just wide open. This thing's unstoppable. This thing is unstoppable. So then, as this game progressed, the Seahawks started making some good adjustments. You notice that here, like, you get one of those good blitz packages dialed up from Mike McDonald, and this gets pressure home. Stafford has to deliver a ball to Adams. That's just kind of ill-advised. It ends up being a decent ball. Like, Adams could have come down with it, but that's an incompletion because of some pressure. Stafford had to throw it a little uncomfortable off his back foot. So you notice that, but then Rams ultimately do get down into the end zone. They get a nice little play action touchdown. So they finally get 21 points, but then they just do nothing the rest of the game. The Seahawks defense really, I mean, this is when they step up. This is when they look good. They've had stops throughout this game, obviously, but they can just take over a game. They really can, because here you have Devon Witherspoon. He's going to be in this cloud flat, and he sticks with this out for a long time. So Stafford thinks he's going to be able to get it to Adams running this corner because he's going to be held down. Adams just throws it, but Witherspoon completely baited it. He just came off of that quick out little hitch type route and just was all over it. That was great defense from Witherspoon there. And then this is the kind of stuff that the Seahawks can just excel at. You just get a one-on-one matchup against this tight end, and that edge just dominates it and stuffs the run. So that's the end of a drive there. And then this one, they try and hit it to Puka, and just look at how sound they are defensively. This guy works outside. You get the safety rotating down. He's going to plug, and he ends up tackling Puka Nacua for no gain. So that drives over as well. So the Seahawks defense ultimately overtook that game late in the game, but the Rams did enough early on to get 21 points, and their defense really was good against the Seahawks in Week 11. Now, for the Rams offense in Week 16, the story of this was 13 personnel, because the Seahawks run nickel against 13 personnel. I've never seen that. So the Rams were let me just come out in 13 personnel. They don't have Davante Adams in this game, so you only use Puka on the field, and Puka's a fullback himself. So then you just snap the ball. It's basically a jumbo set. You might as well run this on the goal line. In fact, they do, but they literally run nickel, so you can just abuse that. They get positive yards every time they run off of 13 personnel, so you can be sure that the Rams are going to run 13 personnel a ton this week in the conference championship against the Rams. I am very certain of it. So then they continue to run more 13 personnel. This is going to be a pretty consistent theme throughout this game, is just running 13 personnel all the time. And then remember, last game, they tried to attack the flats with the match principles. So the wide receiver would run vertically, and then the tight end breaks out on the out, and then the out's wide open. But this time the Seahawks adjusted. They knew that the Rams like to do that, so all of a sudden they try and hit that flat. The corner triggers down. He blows that up, and that's no gain. So that's a nice adjustment they made there. But then on a 4th and 1, the Rams come back out in that 13 personnel. This time, since it's a 4th and 1, the Seahawks just run base defense. They don't run nickel, and it actually works really well for the Seahawks. They completely stuff this run. Rams drive is over. So then we go into the second drive, and after showing 13 personnel so much, they just immediately run play action. It's just immediate play action. You just throw it right out to Puka Nacua in the flat. They knew that the Seahawks would be keying on the run from all of that play action, or from all of those 13 personnel runs, so they hit the play action, and they continue it throughout that drive. You see it again here. They run a play action boot, and they're able to hit the wide receiver run in the crosser, working across the field, and it works out for another first down. So that was a really solid scheme from McVay, getting them down into the red zone by scheming it up with 13 personnel and incorporating the play action. But this is where you see a real struggle with no Davante Adams, because in their first 2 red zone trips, they went 0 for 2. They got 6 points. And you know how Davante Adams is so impactful in the red zone. The Seahawks are able to just completely overwhelm this run play, and they only have one guy on the receiver on the backside. If that's Davante Adams, they probably have a second guy out there, and this run hits a lot better. So Davante Adams was a huge key loss in this game. I think if they have them, they win. But so that resulted in 3 there. And then you see the Rams. This is pretty interesting. They attack the zone coverage of the Seahawks. But since this game, the Seahawks have started matching digs. So, like, you get this deep dig from Puka here. You get the deep corner, or like deep streak seam from the interior receiver. And that creates the dagger concept. Now, since then, this corner would be matching up on this dig. That's what I've seen from the Seahawks. And that has only happened since this game. So I think that the Rams are not going to be able to hit these digs like they did last time, because the Seahawks have completely changed their defensive strategy in relation to digs, because they were so successful for the Rams. So like here, you get a huge dagger concept to Puka. He picks up a ton of yards, and then literally that same drive, you hit another dig because they don't match them. And then you can work right over the top of the underneath zones, underneath the over the top zones, and it works well for the Rams. Those are good throws for Matt Stafford. He's very confident making those. But then ultimately you see another failure in the red zone because they don't have Davante Adams. They try and hit a play action. Everybody knows they're not running. They are just smothered out wide. I think they tried to hit like a tight end screen. That's smothered, and it just was completely unsuccessful. So that's what you see there. But then you work into the next drive. Losing Adams was obviously key, but this is how they end up scoring touchdowns, because they come out in 13 personnel and just attack them. I mean, it is run after run. This drive, I swear it was like 7 out of 10 plays were 13 personnel runs, and they just keep on pounding all the way down the field. It was like 3rd down and 1, 3rd down and 2. They pick it up, and then it just happened again and again. So then they get down into the red zone. They're able to hit a dig, and that works out pretty well. So like I said, though, the Seahawks are probably going to eliminate that because they've changed their defensive strategy. But then they're finally able to get a touchdown because of all that 13 personnel. They literally had to do this without Davante Adams, where they run that much 13 personnel, show 13 personnel on the goal line, and then run play action out of it. And you're able to get the tight end out in space, out into the flat after Nick Eman, where he thought run for a little bit, and then you throw it out to him. So you finally get a touchdown, but that's a long way to 13 points right there. So then now we're into the third quarter, and you see this deep shot. I'm sure Sean McVay saw something on film, because this was one of the first plays of the third quarter. It's coming out of half, and you get a deep scissors concept where Puka is going to take this deep corner, and then you get the deep post. And the deep post just gets wide open because there was some miscommunication here. I'm sure they saw something on film, like what I was saying. But Matt Stafford, man, you got to hit this ball. I mean, this was so underthrown. He needed to throw that a little further. That could have been a touchdown. But either way, they end up hitting a tight end screen now. So I would hammer the tight end over receiving yards, because they have hit this tight end screen numerous times in each game, and I'm sure they're going to come back to it. Now, maybe the Seahawks are going to be game planning against it, but then finally they're able to get an actual touchdown, this time out of 13 personnel again. They just give it to Blake Corum, but that might have been coming off a turnover. I'm pretty sure it was. But then what do you think is coming? It's going to be a 13 personnel run. I mean, it just gets boring to watch at points, but like they just keep on running it. So then you're able to get a huge play to Puka. I'm not sure this was too much schematic related. I think they kind of just had a good matchup. Puka Nacua ended up getting matched up one-on-one against the safety. I can't tell if that's intentional or if that was just kind of a lucky play call against a bad defensive play call. But Puka runs a post. He gets wide open. Another instance, though, Matt Stafford kind of threw it behind him, and that could have been a bigger play if Stafford put it in front of him. But then You see a cute little rub concept. They had to get creative without Adams down in the red zone because now they have to run off this DB with Ferguson, and then Puka works right behind him. So it's like a goal line rub. But then Matt Stafford literally had to throw a no looker to bring down this flat defender because they knew that they were going to try and hit that to Puka. They've shown it on film. So Stafford had to work some magic. They had to get creative, but they ultimately did score. But you kind of see what happens when they don't have Adams. So I think Adams is going to be a huge part of this upcoming championship game. Um, and then here we just see like long play downfield. This is getting into late fourth quarter. This is just kind of like where you get big play calls versus softer coverage, just kind of how the game unfolds. But then ultimately the last play for the Rams offense is another dagger concept. So, they actually matched it up here. It just seems like they're a little less confident with it. They've definitely gotten better at the match since this game. Like, I think they made the adjustment mid-game because all of a sudden they started matching the digs, but then Puka, he gets it, takes it all the way for a touchdown. So Rams offense was super successful in this game, partially because of the digs. Now, I'm not sure if that's going to be able to continue, like I said, because of the defensive adjustments from Seattle, but 100%. You are seeing that 13 personnel. They're going to come out and abuse it, especially if the Seahawks stay in nickel against 13 personnel throughout the game. They will run it a ton. So my conclusion for this game prediction or game preview for the Seahawks offense, what I'll say is they struggled week 11. They struggled week 16. Even though they put up a lot of points week 16, there were a number of mistakes, and a lot of those mistakes happened in week 11 as well. So I'm not confident in their ability to fix them, especially at this point in the year. I'm more confident in the Rams' ability to fix their mistakes that they made on defense, allowing that big run to Kenneth Walker, allowing one of those big screen passes to Kenneth Walker. I think those are going to be the things that get fixed, not as much Sam Darnold's ability to progress after his first read. That's not really something that's likely to change since week 16. So I'm concerned for Darnold for sure. And then for the Rams offense, I'm pretty confident in their ability because they showed out really well in week 16. They played really well despite not having Kevin Dotson or Devontae Adams. They get both of them back. Seahawks don't have Charbonnet, and the Rams offense in week 11 was very solid as well. Even though they only put up 21 points, they had a number of missed opportunities, number of errors on their end that ultimately got fixed in week 16, unlike what we saw from the Seahawks. So I think the Rams have a little bit better coaching. I think McVay is a better coach than Mike Macdonald. They're both phenomenal. I'm not saying anything bad about Mike Macdonald, but I do think McVay takes it. He takes it in playoff experience. Darnold doesn't have much playoff experience. Stafford has a ton. The Rams have basically a fully healthy team. And the only thing that I think could really do well for the Seahawks is if they get plays defensively, if they make some huge game-changing turnovers, if they get another punt return touchdown, if they get something like that, then it's totally possible for the Seahawks. And that's what we've seen in both the prior games when they had a chance. But if the Rams play a good, clean game, they don't turn the ball over more than once, maybe twice, and they don't allow for special teams to make a huge impact, I don't think it's going to be that close. With all those things staying consistent, or if we assume that they're going to go in the Rams' direction, I think the Rams probably win about 34-20, but it's definitely a tight game. It's tighter than the scoreboard would say. And if the Seahawks win, it's going to be because of that defense. That defense is unbelievable. And I think they're good enough to stop this Rams offense, but it's going to be a question of, does the Rams offense make mistakes? And this week in week 16, they didn't, and not many of them. And I don't think they're going to in the conference championship. So I think the Rams are going to win this. Thank you all for watching. I hope you enjoyed. I hope you're looking forward to the Seahawks Rams NFC Championship game. Should be an awesome game. I hope it's a little closer than what my prediction actually is, but I'm expecting a real solid game, maybe a little chess match mixed in there. We're going to see Stafford, Darnold, going to be a great game. So I hope you guys enjoyed. I appreciate you for watching. Make sure you like and subscribe. Comment anything. I'll be reading the comments, and I just appreciate you for watching. Thank you for all the support. So I'll see you guys in the next one.